Put your faith in the light.
Hello guys, welcome to another one of my videos. This is Lightblade. Well guys, in this video I have really good news. The target cap is gone in Shadowlands. That is the hard target cap of 5 that was imposed to a lot of the classes that are kind of struggling, mostly melee. Melee classes are the classes that suffered most from this. This includes us, Retribution Paladins. They uncapped our Divine Storm AOE damage, although there's a small caveat that it's not fully uncapped. We still have a small restriction that after 5 targets, the next targets will take less damage. So that means they're following the square root formula. This square root formula applies to abilities like our Wake of Ashes at the moment. So this means that whenever we use Wake of Ashes, the first target hit will take the full damage. So like you see here on the tooltip, it says 7,624. The first target will take that damage. The next target will take the damage from the tooltip divided between the square root of 2, because there's 2 targets. There's 3 targets, it will take the square root of 3 damage, you know, and so on and so on. So that will now apply to our Divine Storm damage. So why is this important for Retribution Paladins? So for Retribution Paladins, this change is huge because unlike many other classes, our main AOE tool is Divine Storm. It literally is our only AOE spammable tool that actually deals damage. The other one is Consecration, but that thing just hits like a wet noodle. So Divine Storm in the past could account to up to 60 to 70% of a Retribution Paladin's damage at the end of a key, which is really huge compared to the now 30% to 28% damage that I normally get at the end of a key without counting the Divine Storm from Tempest of the Lightbringer. So if those numbers seem really big, and I think with the change that Divine Storm can hit targets after 5, the damage of a Divine Storm at the end of a key will raise to between 40 to 50%. That's really huge in numeric terms, but this only will be possible if your tank actually does big pulls. So note, this change doesn't change anything if your tank is only pulling 5 mobs at a time. If your tank is doing more than 5, you will see increases in your damage at the end of a key. I'm thinking anyways, after the changes go live, many tanks will turn to doing bigger pulls, or at least try to do them. Although Shadowlands dungeons aren't made for them specifically, you have to try really hard to make big pulls. But anyways, if your tank is doing big pulls now, you will see a significant increase in your damage as a Red Paladin. There's also the caveat that Retribution Paladin's damage is burst heavy, and burst heavy damage is really valuable in keys because you want to destroy packs as fast as possible, so you don't have to deal with mechanics on them. So that's another thing that we have in our favor. Now, here I have a small Excel sheet that will exemplify how the numbers look on certain number of targets, and I'm comparing it with a Fire Mage. Note that these numbers aren't perfect. I'm only using the average damage of an ability at the end of a key. For Paladins, it will be Divine Storm, and for Fire Mage, it will be their Flame Strike. So don't take these numbers extremely seriously, take them with a grain of salt. It's just a fun example of numeric things to put things in perspective. Now let's go there. Okay guys, we're here at my small Excel sheet that I made just to exemplify some of the changes that are happening in 9.15 and the target cap removal for Retribution Paladins. So this is going to only exemplify the use of one Divine Storm using an average of 8k damage. I take this average from some of the logs I have of myself doing keys. So the average Divine Storm for me is about 8 to 9k, but I'm gonna use the lowest average, you know? Okay, so let's explain the rows. This first row is the number of targets that we're going to be hitting. The second row is the base square root that I'm going to be using for calculations. This is the root after calculations. And this is the total damage that we're going to be doing to the number of targets that we are choosing. And this row is the baseline of my average Divine Storm after a key, that I said before. Okay. So on 5 targets, my Divine Storm is going to be hitting the 5th target for 8k. That's normal because it's not capped it's not capped for 5 targets. On the 6th target, the Divine Storm that normally would hit for 8k is going to be hitting for 5k. On the 7th, it's going to be hitting for about 4k. Okay, so and so on and so on. Okay, so now let's do some fun stuff. Now let's think about a 10 target fight. In the past, our Divine Storm would only hit 5 targets of those 10, you know? So 5 times 8k, it's 40k. Our Divine Storm would only do 40k damage to those 10 targets. After calculations and after the changes are done, our Divine Storm would hit for an additional 21k damage. That brings us a total of 60k damage to a 10 target fight, only on one Divine Storm. That means that we're getting about 50% extra damage on 10 targets on a 10 target fight. Now let's do that for a 20 target one. So on a 20 target in the past, like now, our Divine Storm would only hit 5 targets. That means we would only do 40k damage. With the changes of 9.15, that we would gain an additional 40k damage, over 40k damage, and that gives us a grand total of 80k damage on a 20 target fight. That means that we're getting about 100% extra damage on 20 targets. That is huge if you ask me. Now let's do a comparison with one of the most popular uncapped AoE classes, a mage. Okay, let's compare our numbers with, for example, a fire mage. I checked some logs and the average fire mage flame strike would hit for about 5k damage. So before the changes, a fire mage would hit a 10 target pack with the 5k flame strike for 50k damage, while a retribution paladin would hit it only for 40k, and a fire mage would hit a 20 target fight with the same 5k flame strike for 100k, while we would only hit that 20 target pack by 40k. So after the changes, on a 10 target fight, our damage goes up to 61k with our 8k average Divine Storm, which beats the mage actually on the 10 target fight. But the mage actually beats the retribution paladin on a 20 target fight with their average Divine Storm, with their average flame strike cast, because their flame strike of 5k would hit for 100k damage, while our Divine Storm, applying all the square root changes, would only hit for a total of 82k damage. So everything that Blizzard wanted to do at the start of Shadowlands still stands. There will be some classes that will have a niche on really high amounts of targets, like for example Fire Mage, Boom Kings, and other range classes that have uncapped AoE, and melee classes will have a lower damage on those big packs, but we can actually be now competitive with them, you know? We're not so behind that our damage is only hitting 5 things and it's deterrent for the group. So after checking this information, let's go back to WoW. Okay guys, we're back to WoW. I hope you guys didn't get bored with all those numbers that I just talked about. I know numbers can be boring sometimes, but it's nice to have a small perspective of what you can expect from Retribution Paladin's next patch. Although all those calculations are only correct if Blizzard still uses the same formula they use at the moment for square root capped abilities. And those are, for example, Wake of Ashes or the Demon Hunter's I-Beam. So if they keep using that formula for Divine Storm on the next patch, my calculations are pretty much correct. You know, that we're going to be doing a lot of extra damage, but we're still going to be behind the uncapped AoE classes. But it's only going to be by a smaller margin, you know. It's not going to be like I showed before, we only do 40k damage and the mage is doing 100k damage. It's gonna be like more, we're doing 89k damage and the mage is doing 100k damage. So it's gonna be a bit more fair, you know. And uncapped AoE classes, capped, square root capped AoE classes like us are going to be able to compete and do big pulls that before we were just kind of a liability, you know. We could do keys on a high level, but it was really annoying to see your damage, like, well, where's my damage? There's 20 targets and I can't hit them all. And that was really sad. So guys, I'm really hopeful for all these changes. Blizzard has basically given us everything that we asked. I don't think there's anything else that I could ask. Like, I was really thinking the target AoE cap was going to come on next expansion. I wasn't expecting it to come so early. It took me by surprise. but I'm really happy about it, and I hope you guys are also happy about it, because we're going to be doing a lot of big damage and also big pulls on Legion time walking, because they also announced that thing, and we're gonna be doing Mythic plus keys in Legion. That's gonna be so good, and it's so great that the uncapped AoE thing appeared then, because there's a lot of pulls that are a lot of mobs in Legion. Legion was really good for Mythic plus. Anyways guys, that's all for the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.